Hello and welcome to this month's Positive Images Festival Poetry Workshop. The Positive Images Festival is in the middle of its flow now, so we've got lots of events going on in Coventry if you're local to Coventry, so do go and check out the website. This month and next month the poetry workshops will still be on YouTube. If you are local, as I say, to Coventry in the UK, then you will be able to hopefully from September, we'll see how it goes, come along to Central Library and join in person. Thank you to everyone who subscribes. I think we've got 115 subscribers now, which is amazing. And at the end of this video, I will put a link to a film, a documentary, so get your popcorn ready. It's an hour long and it's called Stories from Our Streets, and it's a film that I was fortunate enough to create with thanks to Coventry City of Culture and 64 million artists with my local community, just about the history of the area and the people who live here. So if you are from Coventry, hopefully that will be of interest to you. If you're not and you want a little bit of a glimpse into life somewhere and to find out about some people who live where I do, and it's really quite interesting anyway, whether you're from here or not. It might inspire you to come and visit us. So without further ado, let's start our session. Coming up, we have got, as always, poems from across the globe, a fun challenge with words, and Sylvia Plath's toothbrush. So that's right at the end. That'll leave you guessing for a little bit. This first poem is by Georges-Louis Bourget. I'll give you the bio for him because I know that you all love a good bio. So, 24th of August 1899 to the 14th of June 1986. Borges was an Argentine short story writer, essayist, poet and translator, and a key figure in Spanish language and international literature. Although he's now better known for his prose, Borges began his writing career as a poet and was actually known primarily for his poetry in Latin America. So in addition to writing his own original poetry, he also translated many other poets into Spanish for an Argentinian audience. So that's a bit about him. This one is called The Just, and as always, I'm a real fan of the poems that I've picked. You might not be, but you know, experience them anyway, and you're entitled to your own opinion on them. A man who cultivates his garden as Voltaire wished. He who is grateful for the existence of music. He who takes pleasure in tracing and etymology. Two workmen playing in a cafe in the south, a silent game of chess. The potter contemplating a colour and a form. The typographer who sets this page well, although it may not please him. A woman and a man who read the last tercets of a certain canto. He who strokes a sleeping animal. He who justifies or wishes to do a wrong done to him. He who is grateful for the existence of a Stevenson. He who prefers others to be right. These people, unaware, are saving the world. There we go. I like this because it's a quiet, gentle poem, and it feels to reflect the quiet, gentle people that are the topic of the poem. It doesn't particularly use any hugely clever language, but the way that it uses that simple language is very visual. I can picture the people that it talks about in this poem and the little snippets into their lives in the short actions that we see them doing during the time we spend with them in these lines is quite wonderful. So here's my question to you. Who is quietly saving the world today? And I would like you to have a go at writing a poem either in the style of Georges-Louis Borges or inspired by his poem The Just. So this was obviously written quite a while ago now, so see if you can update it. What are people quietly doing these days, especially in the sort of time that we've been living through in the last couple of years? Who is doing what to quietly save the world? Okay, welcome back. Activity 2, as it quite often but not always is your quick write challenge. So sometimes just going for it and trying something new can have really interesting results in poetry, and I hope that's what I'm going to inspire here. Maybe you'll never look at it again and it was just something fun to do, or maybe this is something you'll be able to take away and do something with and play with again. So have a pen and paper at the ready, or a smartphone or laptop, or however you prefer to do it. I'm a bit traditional, I do like a good pen and paper. Think of a word and write it down. So any word in any language that you like, in, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be a clever word or a big word, just a word. And like a noun might be quite a good one, or an adjective, but a word. So I'm going to choose cake because I love cake, so that seemed a good a word as any. So write that word down. Now I want you to think of a word associated with that word that you've just thought of. So I thought of cake, so now I'm going to think of flour, as in like the stuff that you put in cakes, not the flowers outside. Okay, so now write that second word down. Now in your mind, forget about that first word, remove any associations, and just take that second word. So I'm going to forget about cake now, you know, for a minute at least, and I'm going to go with flour. So now I'm going to think of a word associated with that second word. So for flour, I'm going to choose mill, because that's where flour's made. So mill. Now write that word down as well. So now you should have 3 words. So I've got cake, flour and mill. Again, forget the first 2, let's concentrate on that third one. Think of another word that you would associate with that third word. So my word now is mill, so I am going to think of a word associated with that. So for me, I'm going to think of historic, because whenever I've been to visit mills, it's been like on a little history tour. So I've now got the word historic. Keep writing these words down as you think of them. So now obviously you've probably seen how this is going. I'm going to think of another word associated with that one. So historic, that reminds me of books, because I'm thinking school, history, books. So I'm going to write books down. So you obviously are choosing different words to me. Don't write these words down, write down your own. Now I'm going to do another word. So I've got books, so something that I think of to do with books would be stories. So now I'm going to write stories. Final one now. So I've got stories. Whatever word you've got, you're going to think of a word to do with that one. And stories, I'm going to say magical. So I'm going to write down magical. So you should now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. That's a good number. 7 words. Surprise, surprise, guess what you're going to do? Take these words and put them into a poem. Think if you can use some of them in a more unusual way. So rather than taking them literally, can you make them into a metaphor? Like maybe if one of your words was hedgehog, then perhaps you can describe something as resembling a hedgehog rather than actually having a hedgehog in the poem. So like I wouldn't have to literally have a cake, something could be like cake-like, and have a play with it. So fit those words into a poem, see where it goes. Lovely. This is the part of the session where we have our best practice quote. So that's a quote that I've found usually on the internet, thanks Google, and it will be from a poet or about poetry in some way. So today's is by Edgar Allan Poe. As always, I know you love a good bio, so here's a bit about Edgar Allan Poe. 1809 to 1849. He was widely acknowledged as the inventor of the modern detective story and an innovator in the science fiction genre. He made his living as America's first real great literary critic. His reputation today rests primarily on his tales of terror and his haunting lyrical poetry. So he said, "Poetry is the rhythmical creation of beauty in words." Poetry is the rhythmical creation of beauty in words. Let's just let that sit there for a minute and have a think about it. What rhythms and patterns are you using in your poems at the moment? What are you using in the ones we're writing in the session? What are you using in the ones you've written in the last few weeks? Which poems do you enjoy that have that real solid rhythm to them, a really interesting rhythm? And remember, rhythm doesn't have to mean rhyme. It's just a flow, it could be a pattern, but poetry usually has a rhythm to it, even if it's in free verse. So let's have a think about that and see if that can help inspire your poetry in any way, or make you think about that when you're writing to help you create that beautiful poem. Okay, final activity of the day today, and that will then bring us to the end of July's session. Oh my goodness. Here's another quote, different quote, also about poetry, but not our best practice quote, from Sylvia Plath. And I know we've studied Plath in these sessions before. She said once in an interview, "As a poet, I would say everything should be able to come into a poem, but I can't put toothbrushes in a poem. I really can't." So Sylvia Plath said that. Years later, a poet who I haven't got any information about, she writes quite prolifically online, particularly I was going to get the website for you that she's particularly published on, authorsden.com. I'll put that on the screen. She has a lot of poems on there. She took this quote and it inspired a poem. So her poem is called Sylvia Plath's Toothbrush, 11th of February 1963. Little bit of background for you, that was the date, sadly, that Sylvia Plath died, and she died because she committed suicide and she put her head in an oven with the gas on. So obviously that's quite dark, but this poem reflects on that in a really quite, like I used the word already for the first poem, but in a gentle way. And it's a very moving poem, so I think it is anyway. So Kate Burnside, Sylvia Plath's Toothbrush, 11th of February 1963. Night bleeds away on the frozen razor of a snow-filled dawn. My bristles stand sentinel like frosted strands. The bathroom door opens and then is softly closed. She presses her head lightly against it, and the melancholy of her breath drifts dry ice wrapping around me. The strength of her cold fist suddenly closes about me. I am pressed hard against its severed heart line. In the bedroom, she lifts the lid of an empty valise and locks me inside. I am plunged into a deeper darkness, alone, suffocating. Downstairs, so is she. The kitchen door shut, the oven door wide open. So I love the personification in that, the fact that the toothbrush has empathy towards her and understands this depression that she's experiencing. And with them both feeling alone, it's almost like neither of them are alone. And while I'm talking about this, I'm aware it's a toothbrush, but that's the power of poetry for you. Here's your challenge. So either write a different poem about a toothbrush, so somebody else's toothbrush who is not Sylvia Plath, could be your own toothbrush, could be a famous person, whoever, so a poem about a toothbrush, or another sort of basic essential item in life that you can celebrate or personify through poetry. So here's a few suggestions. You might want to pick something else, but you could have a go at a photo frame. Think who's in the photo frame, where it is, that's important. An armchair, again, who's sat in it, maybe even more sort of importantly, who isn't sat in it. What shape does it take? Where is it from? How old is it? What's the history? A towel, so who was the last person to use it? Who's going to be the next person? What's it thinking if it's wrapped around someone's hair? Whose hair? What's their hair like? Lots of questions. That's the beauty of this. So many questions, and you can answer them in your poem. Or finally, a hairbrush, another very essential item. Again, whose hair strands are in it? What's it being used for now? Who was it given to? All of that. So there's a few suggestions, but take a basic item, a toothbrush, something else that I've suggested, something you've thought of yourself that's in your room, and make it the centre of a poem. And there we go. Thank you to everybody who supports these workshops. Thank you to Positive Images Festival who fund them. Thank you for all the people who've come on board since they've been on YouTube, as well as the people who used to come to the in-person sessions, and hopefully will do again. I hope that these help you. I hope they inspire you and get you thinking. And if you can come out with even one poem from the full session of this, my work here is done. Thank you for people who have taken time over the months to comment on these in the YouTube, to press the thumbs up button, to share them, to email me, write to me, send me things via Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it. It is appreciated, and I'm glad you're enjoying them. And thank you also to those who just get on, do the activities, and maybe just keep them quietly to themselves. I appreciate you equally. Our next workshop will be Sunday the 29th of August 2021. It will be online. If you have just joined us, or if you've missed a few sessions, these will stay up here. I hope, potentially with the exception of the Christmas one, they are not actually time sensitive particularly. So you can go back in a few years' time, in a few months' time, and you can redo any of the sessions or do some that you haven't done before, and that would be great. Use them in any way you wish. There are no wrong answers. Have a great few weeks, and I will see you next month. Okay, bye bye.